So let's talk about deconstruction. In my Nordic Chinlines video, I said that it's not just about reconstruction, it's also about deconstruction. It's not just about reconstructing the past, it's also about dismantling the hegemonic framework that is inherent within us. We live in a society that was created and founded by Christian hegemonic powers. So in order to be a polytheist, in order to be a pagan, you have to dismantle the Christian framework that you were born with. One of the most glaring things is understanding what in religion is and isn't exclusive to Christianity. In order to deconstruct, you have to analyze, examine, question, understand, and accept criticism when it comes. Now, somebody with the username Nord made a video response to my Chinline video because he did not understand what leftism and deconstruction is.
There should be no left or right. If you are a pagan person in general, or an indigenous person, people who are of the earth and the land, you should be an independent party. You should be a free thinker.
Leftism is about freedom, actual freedom, not freedom sold to you by corporate America. It is trying to understand what systems are in place that keep us oppressed. What things in society limit your freedom? Things like adhering to arbitrary power structures, for example. Blood quantums. Blood quantums are another really big thing that a lot of people on the right, a lot of folkish pagans specifically, misunderstand massively. They think that in order to be part of a closed practice, you have to have some sort of percentage of DNA that is shared with that closed practice, when in reality, you can be inducted into any closed practice. The only people that actually cared about blood quantums historically were the Christians that were coming in, stealing indigenous children and trying to indoctrinate them to kill the Indian, save the child. This isn't just in America. Australia's done this to the Aborigines. The Scandinavians actually do this to the Sami people. And in Nord's response, he actually goes over the blood quantums that he has.
My bloodline consists of Norwegian, Irish, German, and Native American.
But that doesn't mean that you're part of that ethnicity. I had an uncle that was a Cherokee elder with the Miwok tribe out of California. I was not raised with that culture. I wasn't even really that close to that uncle. I have no right to those cultures that he was a part of. I just have a relative who was part of those cultures. Same thing goes for my Irish heritage. My last name is McGee. I have been able to trace my lineage back to Scotland and Ireland. I have no right to the Scottish or Irish cultures that those ancestors came from. My ancestors came over to America from Europe and then shed their cultural signifiers in order to have a seat at the table of whiteness, in order to be part of that hegemonic power structure, which is really sad and true for a lot of Americans. You don't know those kind of things unless you deconstruct, unless you try and decolonize your mind, which is honestly an ongoing process. It can be stressful, it can be hard. Sometimes there's some realities there that are hard to swallow. But the important thing is to try and accept it. Remember, Odin was not born wise. He had to earn it through sacrifice and gaining of wisdom. We too must analyze, sacrifice, remove things that are useless, accept things that are useful. Nord also spoke against leftism.
This whole leftist idea of control, pronouns, and we need this and that. No, I'll call you a frickin' apple pie fritter if I want to.
Basically stating that he was a centrist, and then proceeding to espouse many different right-wing talking points.
If I sat here and said, oh yes, now it's a closed faith, you shouldn't wear our tattoos, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, next thing you know, I'm labeled as a racist gatekeeper. How can we sit here and point the finger and be like, oh yeah, she can't wear that costume or do this or that because it's indigenous, protected, and this and that? I'm sorry, same shit goes on within our community too. There's just no point in arguing it. You may as well just go on about your day and just shut up and leave it alone. They're going to do what they want. A free country. As far as the chin line goes, okay. Let the Native American women have them and whatnot, and just sit here and make fun of the dumb Viking sluts who think they're dressing cool just to shake their ass on TikTok.
In the United States, I can't really speak to other countries, but in the United States, centrists are actually on the right because of things like the Red Scare and the vilification of anarchists and socialists throughout history. Even though those very people fought for the rights that we enjoy as working class citizens. Things like the 8-hour workday, things like overtime, things like the weekend would not exist without socialists fighting for your freedom. If you're somebody that supports veterans for fighting for your freedom, you should also be supporting socialists for fighting for your freedom. And I'm saying this as a Marine veteran. Those socialists did not go overseas to exploit the resources of other countries. Being apolitical or trying to be apolitical is a political stance. It is a political stance of non-action, but it is still a political stance. And it just so happens that all these centrists just seem to agree with the right, even though they say they're neutral.
You can't sit here and try to control everyone to your ideology. It doesn't work that way. That's why I like said, independent thinker. Should be no left, no right. As much as I hate the Christian party and everything that goes along with those ideals as well. A true independent person who is free of all these things should do everything for everyone.
Neutrality is a political stance. To his credit, Nord did agree that not appropriating the chin lines is good, but, and I've encountered this with a couple of commenters, if we aren't deconstructing and trying to understand those systems and those beliefs that perpetuate racism, how else are we trying to weed out racism within heathenry? Honestly, that is the thing that we need to do in order to be anti-racist, in order to make folkism dwindle within our ranks to the point of non-existence. That can only be done through deconstruction. And to further punctuate my point about centrists being far right, Nord said a bunch of transphobic crap. Literally saying, if I want to call you an apple fritter, I'm going to call you an apple fritter. That is not promoting freedom. That is a right-wing talking point that is used to try and say that people that simply want to be called something else are encroaching on your freedom. Nobody's encroaching on your freedom. You are, in fact, encroaching on people's freedom to be who they want to be. And in a truly free society, you should be allowed to call yourself whatever you want and look however you want to and present however you want to. When we enforce gender norms, when we enforce whiteness, when we enforce any one of these hegemonic factors, we are enforcing bigotry and hate and racism. And the only way to not enforce those things is to analyze them, understand what they are, listen to people of color, understand that you do not get a say in cultures that you do not belong to, and deconstruct that white Christian hegemonic colonizer mindset that has been ingrained in us. Don't just recon, decon.